Greetings, chess players, and welcome back to the free online summer chess camp. My name is Chris Torres. This is Daily Chess Musings. This is our YouTube channel, to be more specific. Our website has all our information about this camp and other events. That's dailychessmusings.com. We also have a nice chess club on chess.com, the Daily Chess Musings Chess Club. So basically our website, dailychessmusings.com, is a central hub, and you can find out about all our great events there and get links to either our YouTube channel or our chess.com club to participate in those. Today, I was... Uh-oh.
Sorry, my headphones were in the...
Okay,
There we go.
Okay. We had a little bit of echo feedback in the room. Today, I was pondering what I would show you guys, and my wife suggested maybe I show a Emery Tate game, that time that he was in a simul. So I said, sure, that sounds like a good idea. For those of you who don't know, I was very good friends with international master Emery Tate, and sadly he passed away a few years back. But he was an absolutely outstanding chess player, an intellectual, and just a great friend. And I spent a lot of time with him. He beat, like 80 different grandmasters over his career. I spent a lot of time with him. I would go to camps and other events that I was running with him, and I would even drive him to classes that we would work in together. So I said, sure, that sounds like a great idea, because so many years ago, yeah, I was doing these summer camps with Emery. What a nice way to remember Emery Tate while I'm doing the same thing that I used to do with him. So the funny part was, my wife was speaking about one game where he did a blindfold simul against 4 players, and I was thinking of another time where I had him playing at the national championship school, elementary national championship school, against a bunch of the national champions that year. And he was doing like a simul against 40 kids simultaneously. So I went ahead and went with that latter one, the latter idea, my idea, for the game. But I thought it was funny that there were 2 really good possibilities when my wife and I were just talking about that time he did the simul with me. All right. So before I get into Emery Tate's game, I want to talk a little bit about the opening that was played. The opening that was played is the Danish Gambit. Now, a gambit means you're giving up some material to get a good position. Usually early on, you're giving up a couple pawns and you gain time and force. In the Danish Gambit's really nice in that you start the gambit on the second move. So you don't need a lot of things to go in a particular fashion in order to use it. It's a very early gambit. The interesting thing that occurred in Emery Tate's game was he was playing, he knew that I had taught the Danish Gambit a lot that particular year with that group that won the national championship. And he was playing one of my top students who was very knowledgeable of the Danish Gambit. And Emery Tate used the Danish Gambit against my student in that simul. But before we get to that game, I want to give you a little bit of quick background on what the Danish Gambit looks like. We'll start with simple games, the most simple, and then we'll finish up with Emery Tate's game against my student. So, the Danish Gambit. White starts with pawn to e4, getting a pawn in the center. Black responds with e5. And then, as white, you play pawn to d4. Now, the idea here is I like to tell my students it's derail, develop, destroy. You derail your opponent's center pawn early, you develop quickly, and then you destroy them. Sounds simple, and sometimes in practice it actually is. So black plays exd4, but their pawn is still in the center, right? And now this game, just so I'm clear, this game was played in 2000. I was white against a student named Christian Weber. So Christian, if you're out there and somehow stumble across this, hey. So Christian took my first pawn. His pawn's still in the center, so I scoot another pawn forward. Now black has an interesting choice. They can take that pawn or risk allowing white to have two center pawns. So usually it's a good idea to take that pawn. And as white here, I could certainly take back with my knight, in which case I would have a knight developed and a pawn in the center, and black wouldn't have anything happening really, except for their extra material. But I like to, play this kind of Hans Linden style. We'll look at one of his games in a little bit. And that is, instead of taking back with my knight here, which makes a profound amount of sense, I like to bring the bishop out, because the bishop's threatening the belly button, right? I get the bishop out, it's threatening the belly button. It gives me a neat check sacrifice that I can always look at. So right now, I have a pawn in the center and a piece developed. My opponent does not have either of those things, but has some extra material. So Christian Weber takes another pawn, and of course I take back. So now we see that I have two pieces developed, two bishops on beautiful, beautiful long, oops, that second line was just terrible. Two bishops on beautiful, beautiful long diagonals, and I have this nice pawn in the center. But I am down two pawns, and I have this horrible isolated pawn on a2. So you gain some advantages, and you gain some disadvantages. It's imbalance. It's early imbalance. I like imbalances. Some people like symmetrical games, and that's fine too. I like creating a lot of early imbalances. So black can get a piece in and say check right away, developing with a threat. And then here, there are two moves that I play. For those of you today, we're going to be looking at the knight c3 idea because that's pretty standard. But something I play around with a lot in my online bullet games and stuff is simply king f1 here, because then my bishops are still streaming across the board, unhindered. So knight c3 blocks the check. Black develops the second piece. Good for them, right? And now right here, I like to play an old move. There are certainly, several reasonable options for white here, but I like to play a really old move. It looks quiet, but it's not really as quiet as it looks, because it's preparing to castle, and that is knight e2. So one thing you're going to find when you play chess players long enough is younger chess players tend to be very greedy. They're very material happy. Material is how a lot of players evaluate a position, purely on material. We know that there are other things, other factors to evaluate a position. For example, king safety is the most important, right? Then maybe material. Then time, who's got more things done. Space, who controls more space, particularly in the center. Force, whose pieces are actually being forceful and attacking things. And pawn structure. So it's not just about material. But when you're starting out in chess, a lot of players just look purely at material, and it's an interesting thing because oftentimes it is a good indicator for these players. If they're material ahead, then they usually end up winning. And so even though they're only looking at one factor, it justifies itself quite often until they get to a slightly higher level. So Christian Weber takes on e4. Knight takes e4. That's greedy. That's taken too much. He takes the extra pawn. So he's taken this extra pawn. But remember, I put my knight on e2 so I could castle. And when I castle, the knight on c3 is no longer pinned. That's important, which means his knight on e4 is being threatened to be captured right now. So black can either lose time, like retreating that, and maybe that's okay. Maybe that's an okay idea. Or they can exchange here. And more often than not, they go ahead and exchange. Knight takes, bishop takes, he exchanges another piece, bishop takes. And now, black castles. We reach an interesting position here. Black has no development, no pawns in the center. White has 2 bishops developed, and the queen has 3 complete roadways, so I would even say that my queen is developed. But we could certainly improve the queen by going to a better square. So, my question to you guys, and Megan will read the responses. My question is, what do you think white should play for move 11? Which is the move we're on right now. What should white play? What would you play here as white?
You've gotten a couple of questions as well.
Okay. Go ahead and tell me the questions while we're waiting for the responses.
Chess Shark wanted to know if the Danish Gambit is better than an open game, which is similar.
The Danish Gambit is a very open game. Open refers to pawns not being in the center. And in the Danish Gambit, I mean, check it out. There are no pawns in the center. A closed game means the pawns are, both center pawns are there and they're generally locked. So the Danish Gambit is a very extreme form of an open game.
Okay, the other one, we're getting a few answers in, but the other one was MVWC says, wouldn't bxf7 check, then queen b3 check work better and gain a pawn?
Was he talking about like move 7 probably? I mean, there are other lines. Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure, MV, which position you were talking about, because I'm getting the question now. But yeah, there certainly are other lines, and some of those bishop takes f7 lines work, some of them don't. But that's precisely why I enjoy playing the full Danish, putting that bishop on c4 early. Okay, so what are our answers to my question?
Srihan Pasupala says queen to f6. Most other people are saying queen to g4.
Yeah, it's white's move. Queen f6 would not be such a great move for black, because bishop would take it. Queen g4 is threatening checkmate, right? Right, guys? We're threatening checkmate. So Christian has to stop that checkmate somehow. And pretty much the only way of doing that, because don't forget, the f7 pawn is pinned. That pawn is pinned. So they don't have a lot of options on how to stop this checkmate. So g6 is the move. And then, of course, I call that opening the door. You opened the door to your opponent's castled defense. And then you just move your queen over. And you have this nice double threat of checkmate, right? On both g7 and h8. And again, the f7 pawn cannot move. So just brutal. Just brutal. We see how time and force, especially early in a game, can be more important than material. All right. So we're going to look at a slightly, let me look at my notes. By the way, these games are coming from my unpublished book on the Danish Gambit. A long time ago, I actually formatted my Danish Gambit lessons into a book format. Never went ahead and published it, but I still, it's handy to have. So I'm just kind of selecting what I thought would be best. So we're going to start easy. That was easy, and then we're gonna get progressively more advanced. Which is always a good way to learn chess. So let's look at Chris Torres versus Hannah Rubin. Yeah, I'll go ahead and save that. That's fine. Chris Torres versus Hannah Rubin. This one was played in 2002. And Hannah, if you're watching, hi. And if you can get me some special access to the baseball team that you are a reporter for, that would be fantastic. All right. So yeah, Hannah Rubin's all grown up now, and I happened to be watching a baseball game and saw her on TV, so that was pretty cool. So let's take a look. So again, I play e4, e5, d4, Danish Gambit, ex d4, derail, develop, destroy. Their pawn's still in the center, so we want to keep derailing it. dx c3, full Danish again, bishop c4. So we have those fun sacrifices on f7. cx b2, bishop takes b2, bishop b4, we've seen this all. Knight c3, knight f6. There's that old move, knight e2. I actually prefer it. Like I said, there are some other options there, but I like the old move. And then knight takes e4, being too greedy. I castle. She takes my knight. So all this is the same. I take back. But now she castles. And I wanted to show this one second for a reason. Then we're gonna move into a much more advanced material in the Danish Gambit, and then get to Emery Tate's game. But this shows you an important concept when your opponent's in the Danish Gambit. Here, Black's bishop is undefended, and bishops are good long-range attackers. My bishops are beautiful long-range attackers, but knights are not. So the concept that you can pick up from this, and use in other openings as well, is move your knight closer to your opponent's king with this knight's threat, right? Because now Black's going to have to do something about this. So basically, you get to move your knight within checking distance of your opponent's king, free of charge. It doesn't cost you time. So bishop c5, it's a nice move. It puts the bishop on the same diagonal as my king. And I'm just curious. We're to move 11 again. I'll go ahead and see what you guys think. What did I play here? Go ahead and type your answer in. And Megan will go ahead and let me know when people say. I don't like reading the chat when I'm doing these things because it distracts me from my thoughts. I like to hear my own thoughts, and then I can explain things in a clearer fashion. Any suggestions, Megan?
Give me a minute.
Okay.
In the meantime, Chess Shark was wondering if what you showed is better than an early queen move, Q takes d4 instead.
Yeah. I mean, if you play queen takes d4, your opponent gets to play knight c6, threatening your queen. Then they have the initiative. So I don't bring the queen out. I'm giving away. I'm paying a price, paying tokens to get extra development. The pawns. We're paying a price. Anybody answer?
Yes. Most people are saying queen g4. We got
Yep.
a couple bishop d3.
So here we go. It's kind of thematic placements for pieces, right? It's a very thematic opening too. Very dangerous. Very thematic. You can win a lot of games with the Danish Gambit, and it teaches us good. It's a good introduction and advanced material for gambits. So queen g4, putting the queen in the same file as our opponent's king. Queen g4 again, right? We're threatening checkmate. We're threatening checkmate on g7. So Black needs to stop checkmate. Hannah plays g6. We call that opening the door. Now, this time, we cannot just slide our queen over to d4. Because if we do that, the bishop's just going to eat it, right? So, if the door is open, the knight hops in and says check. Black can play king g7. And again, here we have a lot of options we could have played. I mean, you know, I could have. Now I probably prefer knight h5 double check even. but I didn't do that in this game. I went 13 queen h4, threatening h7, right? So black has to do something about that. We're attacking h7 twice. Once with the knight, once with the queen. So she plays h6. Then I play knight g4, which is threatening h6 twice, right? And she just does not have enough. And it's also a check, right? That's a check. So black king goes to g8. And then queen takes h6. And once again, we have dual checkmating squares of g7 and h8. Okay, so there's a little bit about when your opponent takes all the pawns and is a little too greedy. Just a little sample of some of the fun stuff that can happen. But we're going to move on. I could show you example after example. You know, I have an example for every variation, basically. But I'm not going to do that. I want to. All right, so I told you that I play it like Hans Linden did. So we'll go ahead and look at Hans Linden's game versus Ladislas Mikzuski, played in Paris in 1863. The Danish Gambit was all the rage at this particular in France at the time period. Frum played it, Hans Linden played it, and then later on players like Blackburn and Alexander Alyakin played it. Spelled more like Alekhine, but it's pronounced Alyakin. Let's take a look. I really like this Linden versus Mikzuski. It's one of my favorite Danish Gambit games ever. e4, e5, d4. Durrell develop, destroy. There's that. Bishop c4. It's the Hans Linden choice instead of the knight takes c3. cxb2, bishop takes. White has two pieces developed and a pawn in the center. Black says check, block, knight f6, knight e2. There's that old move. It was pretty fresh back in 1863. It wasn't old then. Knight takes e4, white castles, knight takes c3, knight takes c3, bishop takes c3, bishop takes c3. So we saw this. We saw this in the Chris Torres versus Christian Weber game that I started us off with. But here comes the fun part. Ladislas Mikzuski doesn't castle into a mating net. He plays queen g5, which does a couple things. It defends g7, creates an escape route to d8, and puts the queen in an offensive stance against our king. Same file as our king. Kind of interesting. So, what do you guys think? What should white play here? I'll give you a moment or two. What should Hans Linden play here? Queen came out to g5. What should white do? Common sense. Anybody have an answer?
Rook e1.
Yeah! Who said that?
Unlisted go.
Unlisted go. Nice. Rook e1 check, right? Common sense. Take a piece that's not being used, put it in the open file, and say check. It's good common sense. All right, so black, Ladislas Mikzuski makes use of the d8 escape route, right? Interesting. Okay, so now comes the hard question. White can win from here. How do they do it, though? Anybody have suggestions for white? What should Hans Linden do?
I'm not sure these are for the next question or from the last one. Queen to d2, queen to e1, queen to d5. Bishop takes f7 is a bad move. Oh, someone had suggested that earlier, so they were answering. Pawn to g3, bishop takes f7.
We've got better. Let me give you some hints, guys. Remember the queen is defending g7, right? Imagine if the queen wasn't there defending it. Black would be in a lot of trouble because we could play bishop takes g7, threaten their rook, and then maybe bishop f6 and say checkmate because our rook controls the e-file. But their queen is there defending it, so we need to remove the guard. Remove the guard. How do you get the queen to move?
Queen e2?
Nope. Queen e2 is not going to remove black's queen.
Bishop d2, rook e5.
Rook e5 would, but we have something better.
Bishop b4.
Nope.
Bishop takes g7.
Bishop takes g7 would get it to move, but we lose our bishop.
Bishop takes f7. Oh,
No.
I already said that. Queen g4, I think we said. h4, f4, rook a.
Okay, h4 and f4. Who said those?
Darsham said h4, Edenart said f4.
Both of them work. Both of them work. h4 is probably the more sane choice. Because if you play h4, you aren't opening up your c5 for a check and possible fork. But Hans Linden was anything but sane in some of his chess games. So he played f4. And he knew what he was doing. He knew what he was doing. Because, see, I'll go ahead and look at that right now. If queen c5, bishop d4, you can block it. Then queen f8, running back to defend, then queen h5. He would be fine. He would be fine. It looks dangerous, though. All right, so f4. Mikzuski plays queen takes f4. And now the queen moved, remember? So we want to take g7. Bishop takes g7. Rook g8. And now, here it is again. We could play bishop f6 checkmate. Except that darn queen is on f4, guarding it. So how do we remove the guard? Throwing it out to you guys. We want to remove the guard so we can play bishop f6 checkmate. We got to make black's queen move. What is the most beautiful way? There's a few ways to do it, but what is the most beautiful way? Bobby Fischer did a similar, he did almost the same kind of combination later on and said that he had seen it in this game. So it's such a beautiful motif, it's stuck in Fischer's head. Any suggestions?
Queen g4, g3.
Yep, queen g4. Who said that?
Siram Kapsutala.
Siram? Nice. Queen g4. But doesn't that just throw away a queen? Well, if queen takes queen, you've got bishop f6 checkmate, right? If black's queen takes your queen, I'll go ahead and draw the arrows for you so you see. If that goes there, then this goes there, and that's checkmate, right? So black plays queen d6. Queen d6, still defending f6. How annoying. And now, what do you play as white? One last question from this game. What do you play as white here? Black retreated their queen to where it defends f6. Who's got the final move of the game? Actually, it's the final move. I shouldn't have given that much away. It's not a checkmate, though. It's just after it, Mikzuski's had enough and resigns. Who's got the move?
Queen g5.
Nope.
Bishop f6.
There you go. Bishop f6. I mean, queen g5 works too. I mean, a lot of these things. But bishop f6 is just beautiful because that bishop was pinned to your queen, right? And you're moving the bishop to where it's just sitting there for free, right? Well, obviously, you know, that's a check. And then If black takes the bishop, then you can go down here and say check, mate, right? And if they block with the queen, then you could just move your queen down there and say checkmate. Queen takes rook, because remember, that queen's pinned. You don't even have to take the queen. It is just a stunner. Watch this again, ladies and gentlemen. Stunning. Just absolutely stunning. Just by looking at the board without looking at the checks, it looks like you're giving away a bishop or a queen on the same move. But it is a forced checkmate instead. Just stunning. All right, let's jump ahead to Henry Bird versus Lasker. Now, those of you who have been around chess circles for a while, you've probably heard of Bird, and you've probably heard of Lasker. These are big-time famous names. Of course, Lasker, a world champion for 27 years straight. Henry Bird, the guy who played, F4 is named after him, the Bird opening. But he did a lot of other interesting things. He was a top player. He was top 3 in England around the time. So he was really strong. So Lasker is in England, a place called Newcastle upon Tyne, that still has a soccer team there, right? And let's take a look. Let's see what happens. Bird plays e4. So Bird is in front of his home field supporters, and Lasker has traveled to play him. E4, E5, D4, EX, D4. He starts with the Danish Gambit. Bird is white, by the way. Darrell, develop, destroy. And here comes this Queen G5 again, but in a different order this time, right? A different order. There was no Bishop B4 check. So what do we think Bird plays here? What do you think White would play here? In the Danish Gambit, if you're faced with a 5 Queen G5, you want to remember this game. What do you think Bird would play here? This is a lot of people's favorite Danish Gambit game ever played. Any suggestions in the comments?
Not yet. Give it a minute.
Not yet. Give it a minute. I mean, yeah, black's threatening G2, right? They're threatening...
A3? That's not right.
He probably means knight F3.
Ah.
Yeah. And
Queen F3 and Knight F3 are the first 2 suggestions.
Queen F3 is not the correct move. Knight F3 is. Knight F3, people would say. What's going on there? What's going on? Can't Lasker just take on G2? Why, yes. Yes, he can. Queen takes G2. Now threatening the rook on H1. Where should the rook go? Well, if it goes to F1, it's not doing anything. If it goes to G1, it's threatening Lasker's queen. So he takes the pawn, but he's losing time now. Supposedly, right? Supposedly he should be moving his queen. But remember, this is Lasker, one of the top masters ever. So bishop b4, he develops another piece with a check. And now, I ask you guys, what should White do here? What does Bird do against Lasker? The famous Lasker. What does Henry Bird play here? He is in check. But Lasker's queen is under threat. This is interesting. What do you guys think?
King to E2 or F1?
Wow. Well, we can't go F1 because the queen is guarding F1. But King E2 is correct. We do not block. I mean, most people would think that blocking, right? Blocking the check, preserving your ability to castle. That's what most people would play. Henry Bird stuns his opponent, plays King E2. Just steps up in more close to the center in the middle of the board. But now he's out of check. And Lasker's queen has got to go. So queen goes to h3. Now what do you do? White has the initiative. What should white play, ladies and gentlemen?
Give it a minute to catch up.
Uh-huh. Oh, by the way, while I'm letting it catch up, you're probably seeing maybe an advertisement for the summer games. At the first week of August, I think it is, August 2nd through 6th, I am hosting a summer games for chess on chess.com. So after you study a whole bunch in this camp and learn a whole bunch, it's free. You can come play in the summer games. Maybe you'll win, top 3 in your group. It's just going to be like a regular Olympic Games, except specifically for chess. The summer games.
Okay. We're getting QD5, bishop takes f7, rook g3.
Who said bishop takes f7?
Micah Hansen.
Micah, very good. So bishop takes f7. You always look at your checks, captures, and threats first when analyzing a position. Bishop takes f7 is a check capture. So that should be the first move you look at. Bishop takes f7. Now here's the cool thing. If black takes back, then you have this really cool fork. It's a vertical royal fork. Most of the time we see them horizontal, right? This one's a vertical royal fork. You'll check the king and win the queen. So Lasker, he wasn't born yesterday. He's not going to take that. So he plays king d8. And I'm going to, we'll go ahead and I'll show you the next move. Bishop takes, g7 falls. This is getting really nasty. And then Lasker plays knight to e7. So it's getting really nasty for black. But if white missteps, even just a little bit, black could get back into this very quickly. Because white's king's very exposed. What do you think white should play here? We are on move 11. What should white play? Yeah, so the summer games, I'm going to have Blitz as its own event, Rapid Chess as its own event, Chess 960, which is also known as Fisher Random Chess. Your pieces in the back rank are mixed up. So opening knowledge isn't, there aren't memorized openings. That'll be a separate event. And Bug House will be a separate event. And Bullet. Yeah, so that's 5. 5 days of fun. I'm going to be breaking the players up into skill level based groups based on their ratings. If they don't have like 20-something games in chess.com, then they automatically get placed in the hardest category. In this way, we don't have people that are really, really strong, just beating up on newbies in the lowest sections. But it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be live broadcasting the whole event here on the Daily Chess Musings YouTube channel. So what did they say, Megan?
Bishop f6, knight g5, bishop h8, bishop takes h8.
Yeah, bishop takes h8 is a little greedy. It's probably playable though. Who said knight g5?
A couple of people, MVWC and Micah.
Nice. MVWC and Micah.
And XP Master.
Yeah, so knight g5. Knight g5 is nice. It's threatening. It's moving the knight closer to the king while threatening something behind. Remember, we talked about this a couple games ago. The same kind of concept. How bishops are long-range attackers. Knights want to move closer to the hot spots, your opponent's king. So the queen moves, queen h4. And who can tell me what Henry Bird plays now? I'm just curious. We move forward one. Lasker saves his queen. Because he'll lose if he loses his queen.
Yeah, it's catching up. Cheshire thinks you're condescending for calling them newbies.
Ha! Yeah. It's okay to be new at something. Or newer at something. Less experienced. This is fine. If you are new to chess and tuning in to this broadcast, I'm happy to have you. I want to introduce as many. I think we've got we've got nearly 8 billion people in the world, and a whole bunch of them play chess. It's a very global game.
Knight e6.
Yep, knight e6, checkmate. Isn't that just beautiful, guys? Isn't it? So it's checkmate because the queen is pinning the pawn to the king, so the pawn can't take. The knight is saying check, and the bishop prevents the king from stepping to the side. It's just a beautiful, beautiful checkmate. Very, very high level master game played in Newcastle upon Tyne in 1892. So I've shown you guys how to beat up against the Danish Gambit a little bit. I at least, before we get to that Emery Tate game, I want to show you, maybe a good choice as a defense. As a defense. Let me make sure. That's not the one I want. There we go. Okay. So quick defense. Quick defense to the Danish Gambit. The full Danish as we're looking at it today. Maybe you want to try this. A lot of times when your opponent's gambiting pawns at you, Durrell develop destroy style, take one or a couple, and then throw your other center pawn up there. Or take a couple and give a pawn back. But throwing the other center pawn up instead of continuing down the chain and just capture, slows white's development down, right? You aren't just doing what they probably want you to do then. So e4, e5. We'll take a quick look at the Schlechter defense. E4, e5, d4, boom, 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 boom. White plays bishop c4. We talked about all this. Durrell developed, destroy the bishops, threatening f7. Cx, b2, bishop takes. And then d5. There's a d5 move. This one's about as late as you can possibly get away with playing it. But and we'll look in the Emery Tate game at a similar one called the Sorensen's defense. But this is Carl Schlechter's defense. And it's responsible for kind of making the Danish Gambit a lot less popular with today's players because the main line, I'll go ahead and show you the main line. The main line continues bishop takes d5. And then after knight f6, so black develops a piece, threatening the bishop. Well, you might say, gee, there's a neat tactic here. We can win a queen. It looks like you can. Bishop takes f7, king takes f7. Boom! White wins the queen. Right? Black says not so fast. Bishop b4, which is a discovered attack on white's queen. Cool, huh? Carl Schlechter came up with a cool defense here. So, if you're going to lose your queen anyways, use it to block the check, right? Take, and then black, I like playing rook e8 here. There's some other ideas that you can try, but I like playing rook e8 here. I have played this as both white and black. It is totally fine as white. It is not a refutation in the sense that it makes the Danish Gambit unplayable. It is not anywhere near that. But what it does do is white was playing the Danish Gambit with the idea of developing pieces quickly and attacking, right? Not trading queens, not getting into an endgame where black has 3 pawns on the queen side and white only has 1. White still controls center, occupies the center, right? White still has a fine position, In fact, I think last time I looked at this with a chess computer, I actually thought white was winning by like a quarter pawn or something, right? So white White still maintains a teeny advantage. But honestly, it's not what a Gambit player wants. If your opponent is wanting to open things up and develop quickly and attack, they don't want to end up in a position like this. And so that's why it kind of fell out of favor, so to speak. But it is a perfectly fine opening. It is a perfectly fine opening to play. Again, let me show you the moves of this again. Just so, in case you see it in the tournament tomorrow, you have something that you can use to diffuse the Danish Gambit a little bit. Certainly not c6 here, right? Because if you play c6, then bishop takes, king goes there, and then bishop a3, and then black's going to lose their queen. Black's going to lose their queen. But you play knight f6 here. Now, if you're white, you can try knight c3 here. It's not perfect. I play it sometimes. But oftentimes, I'll just play that Danish endgame as white. So there's two choices. But then the Danish endgame, the endgame resulting from the Schlechter defense is bishop takes, king takes, queen takes, bishop e4, queen blocks, bishop takes, knight takes. And then, like I said, I like rook e8. I like rook e8 there as black. So there you have it. Something you can use from the black side to kind of diffuse it a little bit. I would show you a famous game from that, except we're running out of time, and I want to show you this Emery Tate game. Emery Tate. So, back in, shoot, I want to say this might have been 2004.
Doesn't it have the year on there?
It's not showing it for me right now. It could be 2006. Yeah, we did this at Mission San Jose Elementary School in Fremont. They had won the national championship, and I would bring great players like Susan Polgar, Grandmaster Susan Polgar. I am Emery Tate, International Master Emery Tate, FIDE Master Eric Schiller. All these great friends of mine would come and play with the students, teach the students. Emery Tate was playing a simul against 40 boards, which is a lot of work because it's not like on a computer screen where the next board pops up or whatever. You're walking around in this big, the tables make a big circle around you. Well, I guess it's a rectangle, right? A big rectangle. You're surrounded by them, and you walk in circles for hours and hours. Because the longer the games take, it even takes a few seconds to move from one board to the next, and this time adds up very quickly when you're dealing with like 40, 50 boards. It might have been a 50 board simul. Emery played very quickly, did not lose a single game.
It was February 2015, according to.
Oh, February 2015. Why? I missed it by a decade, ladies. And
Yeah.
Holy Toledo. Thank you, Megan. It was certainly not February. This was played over the summer. I know that for a fact, so I don't know why I had the... this would have been July of 2015.
Maybe it was July 2014 and you just posted it?
July 2014, probably. Yeah, it was 2000. Thank you, Megan. All right, so we're getting the details of the game. All right, so Emery Tate is playing against a whole bunch of my students who won a national championship. Very strong players in the room. Very, very strong players in the room. They were the best their age in the country. And like I said, he's rushing from board to board to board. He's playing a young man named Luke Zhao, who attended all my classes, not just at that school, but at nearby facilities that I would teach, and took private lessons from me. I went through my Danish Gambit book with him. He really liked the Danish Gambit. I said, sure, I'll show you everything I know. Yeah. And so Emery Tate, interesting, chose to play the Danish Gambit against one of my top students, who really knew it. So this is kind of interesting because you've got this extreme talent, Emery Tate, one of the strongest international masters who's ever played. Clearly grandmaster strength at different times. Versus one of my national championship winning students, who this was his favorite opening. So Emery Tate's going to use his favorite opening against him. And I've got about 10 minutes to get through this game, so I better get going. E4, E5, D4. It was such a neat opportunity to see Emery Tate just play the Danish. He didn't use it in his own games, in his own tournament games. But he was mixing it up on all the boards, and he was using it against one of my top students who really knew it. So EX D4, C3, and then Luke plays D5. So this is the Sorensen defense again, throwing that pawn back to diffuse the Gambit. EX D5 is the best line. This is what Emery plays. Queen takes D5. This is book. CX D4. White's pawn is now isolated. They have an isolated queen's pawn. And knight C6. Now, real fast, I was surprised that Luke didn't play bishop B4 there, because we had looked at the bishop B4. Let me just go real fast. This is Alexander Alyakin versus Freeman. It was played at the New York 1924 tournament. And Alyakin was white, and we kind of see how things progress. Freeman probably shouldn't have taken the pawn there, because this gives Alyakin the ability to just push to C4 and kick Black's queen. And that's what he does. Continues to gain space, moving the knight closer, getting the bishop on the long diagonals, getting the rook in the open file. That's an interesting move, and you'll see why in a moment.
Luke is black, right?
Yeah, Luke was black, but right now we're looking at Alyakin versus Freeman real fast. Queen goes to G5, putting queen same file as the opponent's king. Knight G6, blocking. You'll see why I showed you this game in a second. Because I'm going to ask you a question. And let's see, do I want to do it quite yet? Or did I miss my opportunity to ask you the question? Bishop takes F6, forcing things. Okay. Quick question. Alyakin gets his pieces developed, puts them in great spots, outmaneuvers his opponent. It was a roughly equal position a few moves ago. But now he's got a mate in 4. What should White play here? This is Alexander Alyakin versus Freeman, New York, 1924. Just a beautiful position, though. What do you think White plays? Who knows? What does White play? This is challenging. Any comments, Megan?
Give it a minute.
Okay. Waiting for you guys to comment in.
Rook E8.
Yep. Rook E8 says Chekaruski.
Benjamin C said that.
Knight F8 blocks. And now what do you play as White? This one's even harder. Benjamin C, do you know the next move? The Rook E8 makes sense. Although it does open up the possibility of a back rank mate now for Black, right? If you mess this up, Black's gonna back rank mate you, ladies and gentlemen. Very spicy chess. I see a lot of people come.
Knight H6.
Who said that?
Micah.
Nicely done, Micah.
Knight H6, Queen takes H6.
Knight H6, Queen takes H6. Yeah, it's a check. And they have to. If they move their king out of check, the rook takes, says checkmate. So then queen takes, right? Then rook takes, king takes, and then rook says checkmate. Beautiful finish, right? That's how a world champion plays the Danish Gambit. All right, so back to Emery Tate versus Luke Zhao. we've got ourselves... Luke didn't play bishop b4, even though I know for a fact I would have shown him that game. But that's okay. Knight c6 is totally playable. And knight f3, and then black plays bishop g4. So this is, totally... And then, if white plays knight c3, black generally plays bishop b4. So you're pinning both knights with your bishops is kind of what happens here. I'm gonna speed along a little bit. I could show you another Aliakin game, but we just don't have the time. So bishop e2, taking care of the one pin. And black castles queenside. I think bishop b4 there is what I tend to play in this position. In fact, Peter's Fiddler also played it. So if Peter's Fiddler played it, the guy's been a Russian chess champion most times in history. I played as well, bishop b4, and then white plays knight c3. Real fast, it looks like this. Right. Okay, so getting back. But Luke castled queenside, and that's fine. He could still maybe play the bishop b4. Knight c3, there's the bishop b4 pinning. Emery castles. And then right here, we see, remember in that Aliakin game, Freeman played bishop takes knight and then pawn takes. And then maybe the pawn could play to c4. Luke's going to make kind of that same little mistake here. And maybe he should have played like queen a5 instead. But he plays bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3. And now, I guess Luke was worried about the possible knight g5 and stuff down here. And he plays h6. And that gives away like a tempo, right? Instead of worrying about that, knight f6, something like knight f6, rook b1, rook h to e8, c4, queen e4. That's kind of probably what should have happened. But he played h6, and that is most definitely a mistake because it's a slow move, and white already has an advantage in time. So Emery responds with rook b1. His rook is like a cannon pointed straight at where black is getting safety for their king, right? And then there comes knight f6. One move too late, though. Bishop e3, developing pieces. And black plays knight d7. Luke's reacting to the danger that Emery's presenting improperly. I mean, he could have tried. He could have tried queen takes a2 and just let Emery have a massive attack and then try and defend. And if he trades off pieces, he wins an endgame. That would probably be how I would have done it. I'm sure I would have lost to Emery too, but, knight d7 is slow. So remember when he played bishop takes c3, I said here, c4 is probably coming. Yeah, it does. c4 there, it pushes, gains space against Luke's queen. And then queen goes out to h5. And now this is really cool. There's a lot of different moves here that white could have played, like queen b3. Looks like a normal choice, right? But Emery Tate, people used to call him E.T. It was like he was an extraterrestrial who had like a communicator to an alien spaceship. And he plays rook b5. He moves his rook up. He loved to do things with rooks like this. Rook goes up to the 5th rank, attacking the queen. And let's see. Luke plays queen g6. Now, Emery told me after the game that he thought Luke was going to do something like this. Knight d to e5. Kind of returning the favor of fancy tactics, right? It's blocking the threat of the queen, knight takes, and then bishop takes e2. This is fancy. And Emery was a little concerned about this, although I think he would have been okay. But that was really fancy tactics. Luke did not see them. Luke played queen g6. And now Emery pushes forward to d5. Now those pawns, first they advanced and kicked the queen out of there. Now they're advancing and disrupting the king's safety. Knight c to b8. Luke has kind of resigned himself now to just being target practice for Emery. It's his full turtle mode. His king is completely surrounded. Emery has more space, way more space, can outmaneuver Luke easily, and Luke's kind of a sitting duck. So now Luke's only chance at winning would be, or Black's only chance at winning would be if White messes up the attack, right? Which could happen. It happens in chess. Not usually with Emery though. So Queen b3. Now the punishment is really going to start kicking in. And let's see. Black plays b6 to stop rook b7, obviously. And then pawn to c5. Wow. Okay, so b6. Stop things for just one moment. Just one moment. And then Emery responds with c5. And then f5, it's just too little too late. c6. That's really literally putting a nail in the coffin, right? Black is buried here in his castled position, and this nail just came forward, nail in the coffin. And then, let's see. Knight takes c6. We'll finish this up real fast. Dx c6. Queen takes c6. Rook c1. Boom. New piece into the attack. Same file as the queen and king. Queen goes to a8. Not where the queen wants to be for sure. And Rook plays rook. Emery plays rook to a5. And Black can't take this. It's beautiful. If Black takes, check, block, checkmate, right? So Black can't take that. So rook a5, knight b8. Again, all the pieces are just trying to defend on Luke's side of the board. This is what, this is what can happen when things go wrong against a player like Emery Tate. And again, he was playing like 50 boards simultaneously, and was playing attacks of this caliber on all these boards. I just happen to really like this one because it's a Danish against a student that I taught the Danish to. Bishop f4, threatening c7 twice. And if you were thinking bishop to b6, that also would have worked. Bishop could take b6, and that works too. Let's see. So bishop f4 is what Emery does. Rook d7, Luke's still defending. Things attacked c7 twice, so Luke defends it again. So he has two defenders. Rook e5, rook h to d8. Again, it's not quite full turtle mode, but it's pretty bad. Queen e6, pinning the rook to the king. And Luke plays g5. And now Emery has a mate in 4. Hard to spot. Who can spot the mate in 4? This will be the final question. Final question of the day. Who can spot the mate in 4? By the way, it's been an absolute pleasure sharing with you some of my favorite Danish Gambit games. I hope you are enjoying and learned a lot from this lesson. I kind of threw it, I enjoy making these lessons that are for a broad range of abilities, and I believe there's something in this for everybody. Some interesting ideas on just gambiting in general, to more specific ideas on the Danish Gambit, to very, very kind of high-level ideas as I ask you these kind of questions here. The last mate in 4 was hard. This one's hard. These are hard mate in 4s.
Queen takes d7, rook takes d7. Rook takes c7 check, king takes c7, rook to c5 check.
Who said that?
XP Master.
XP Master, you win. You win. I think this was the hardest mate in 4 to spot. And Emery spotted this while he was doing a simul, right? So he's not just staring at one board, he's moving around, gets back to the board, and immediately plays. Rook takes c7 check. King takes c7, right? And then XP Master said rook c5. If you don't see rook c5, the first move doesn't make sense. Rook c5 is a double check, right? So the pawn cannot take the rook because the bishop is checking the king. Discovered check. King has to move to b7. And now, queen d5, check. Forcing a rook takes queen. So even if you saw the rook takes c7, check, and then the double check, you would have to then look past a queen sacrifice to spot rook c7, checkmate. Checkmate, because we have this bishop down here on e2. Let me just show you that one more time. Black plays g5. Rook takes c7 is check. Black has to take. Rook c5 is double check. Queen d5 is check. Black could play knight c6 to block, you might say, but then queen's going to take c6, checkmate, right? But black's going to take that queen. Boom, there goes the queen, but there's checkmate. Super, super finish to that game. That just wowed everybody. I was just completely blown away. ET showing off that extraterrestrial ability. Emery, I miss you, man. I still do. I wish you could be here teaching this camp with me. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I had just so much fun with you. Tomorrow, same time, same channel. Make sure you remember to give this video a like on your way out. Make sure you're subscribed. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye.